right, beautiful people. So yesterday we talked about what ratio tables were, and we talked about how to solve them. And then we did some IXL that got us into some trickier ratio tables. So today our essential question is, how do you fill out ratio tables? So we're going to talk about filling them out when the pattern is not as clear, or when the numbers are harder to deal with. So I'm going to start by giving an example. Okay, so here's my example, frogs to toads. The ratio is 4 to 6. So to fill out ratio tables, what I would recommend is thinking about each of these things as a ratio. So this first one, 4 to 6, is a ratio all of its own, 4 over 6. Okay, that is a ratio. There are 4 frogs for every 6 toads. We want to figure out what goes in this blank spot right here, underneath the 20. So this says that there are 20 frogs, so how many toads are there? So what we need to do is find the multiplier that'll get us that equivalent ratio. Okay, so in order to find the multiplier to get us that equivalent ratio, we need to figure out how many groups of 4 frogs will make 20 frogs. So how many groups of 4 make 20? Well, 5 groups of 4 make 20, so I multiply by 5. Okay, so since I have 5 groups of 4 frogs, I need 5 groups of 6 toads also. So I multiply the bottom number, or the denominator, also by 5. And 6 times 5 is 30. Okay, which means the number that goes in here is 30. So our equivalent ratios are 4 frogs to 6 toads is the same as 20 frogs to 30 toads. Okay, this is how you fill out a ratio table when it's not quite clear what the pattern is. Okay, so now what we can do is fill out the next part of the ratio table. I want this number up here, and I have 90 as the denominator. Now, the cool thing about ratio tables is you can choose whichever ratio you want to start with. I could still start with 4 to 6. I could start with 4 frogs to 6 toads and get something over 90. That's totally fine. However, I can also start with 20 frogs to 30 toads, because I know that 30 goes into 90. I know that there is a pattern there. So what you're doing as you're filling out the ratio table is you're looking for patterns. So I'm going to start this time with this ratio. 20 frogs to 30 toads is equal to how many frogs for 90 toads? Okay. So this time I want to figure out how many frogs there are. So I look at this ratio relationship and I say, okay, well, how many groups of 30 toads are there in 90 toads? How many groups of 30 go into 90? Well, 3 groups of 30 go into 90. So I'm multiplying by 3. Which means in the numerator, same idea, I need to multiply by 3. 20 times 3 is 60. So there should be 60 frogs for every 90 toads. Okay. Again, I'm just looking for the ratio patterns, these relationships that are happening. And then now I have one last problem that I want to solve, and I want to find out how many frogs for 180 toads. Again, I can use any of the previous ratios. I could use 4 to 6. I could use 20 to 30. I could use 60 to 90. It doesn't matter. I get to choose which one to start with based on which one I think will get me to 90 easiest. Okay? So I know that there's a relationship between 90 and 180. I know that 90 times 2 is 180, so I'm going to start with 60 to 90 this time. You can start with any of them. If you started with 4 to 6, that's fine. But I'm going to start with 60 to 90. So there are 60 frogs for every 90 toads. I want to find out how many frogs there are for 180 toads. So I'm going to do the same exact thing that I've done before. I know that I have both denominators, 90 and 180. So how many groups of 90 toads go into 180? Well, 2 groups of 90 toads go into 180, which means in the numerator I do the same thing. 2 groups of 60 frogs, which is 120. So the numerator is 120. And now I have 4 equivalent ratios, which I'll write out in the next video.